This episode contains strong language, graphic depictions of violence and death that may be disturbing for some listeners. Listener discretion is advised.
Hey YouTube crime freaks and geeks, this is Shelly.
My name's Brandon.
And you're listening to
A beer.
A crime.
A tale.
I feel like we had an echo there, but I can live with it.
Oh yeah, right in there.
I also had to sneeze during that intro, and I had to look up at
held
this.
it in.
I did. I was really proud of myself because someone told me a trick once that you look up at the ceiling and you stop sneezing.
What?
I'm dead serious.
I always thought it was like do it like I can sneeze on command.
Well,
No,
try to.
That's not how it works.
Whatever.
But anyway,
You're failing me.
Okay. I thought it was like you like say like the word sun and like watermelon or some shit.
What? Did you say watermelon and it's supposed to stop it?
I don't know.
Oh,
I made that one up. I made that one up.
Oh. I was going to believe you, but now I don't.
Yeah, you should probably never believe me.
It's actually probably true.
Yeah.
So welcome to our Patreon episode. Yay.
Hey, if you're listening to this on YouTube right now, you're lucky. Episodes like this get posted onto our Patreon. If you are a Patreon subscriber, it's either $3 or $5 a month to support us. You get access to these super cool episodes. Because once they're up, well, after we're done, we take them right down. So you don't have access to it anymore. So if you're watching this right now, you're lucky. But if you want to watch some more like this, go join our Patreon and become a subscriber.
Yeah, and thank you for everyone that does subscribe. I appreciate it.
Yeah, we'll start doing monthly giveaways soon.
Yes. So I'm going to just start on this right away.
Oh God, we're just diving right in.
We're going right in.
But before we go, I do want to stress that if you don't have a drink, get a drink. If you're not drinking, get a water.
Water.
Because you need to stay hydrated. But no, our drinking word of the episode is Steven.
Steven.
It's get ready to drink. That's all I'm saying.
Yes. And this is going to be the mysterious disappearance of Steven Kubacki.
Steven.
And my main source was an article written by Ellen Killoran, and she named her article "The Misappearance of Steven."
The misappearance?
Yeah, because he went missing. He was disappearing, missing. I don't know. That's how I could take
misappearance
of Steven Kubacki. It was like a 4-part article. It was really good. So,
all right.
That's my main source, and yeah. So let's read this.
Let's do it.
Let's do this.
Let's do it.
On February 20th, 1978, some snowmobilers were enjoying a winter day near the shores of Lake Michigan. They decided to take a trail that started at St. Augustine in Sagatuck, Michigan. I hope I said that right.
Sure.
They were having a great time until one of them noticed something unusual in the snow. A pair of skis and a backpack were left abandoned on the trail, and a set of footprints went from the skis past the shore of Lake Michigan, kind of like slightly into the lake, like because it's snowy and ice covered.
Yeah.
There were no returning footprints. The snowboarders called authorities, and the Michigan State Police came out to the scene. Responding officers found the property left in a neat, orderly manner. The skis were side by side, facing the lake, about 8 inches apart. The ski poles were stuck in the snow, upright on the outside of the skis, and the backpack was sitting on top of the skis, still fully packed. They looked inside the backpack, hoping to find some sort of identification. There wasn't any IDs, but there was a dentist bill belonging to a Steven Kubacki.
A dentist bill?
A dentist bill, yes.
Because I carry that around with me everywhere I go. Especially if I'm going snowboarding or skiing. I have to have my dentist documentation.
I thought it was
just in case.
I thought it was weird too, but I mean, maybe before he went skiing, he stopped by the post office and got a bill. I mean, And then
What, he ski to the post office and then ski to the mountain?
I don't know. It's Michigan, maybe. Hell,
That's true.
I don't know.
That's true.
Steven Kubacki was a student at Hope College, and he lived off campus with a roommate. An officer goes to the residence, hoping that Steven had just left these items behind. The roommate answers and tells the officer that Steven had left 2 days ago on a solo cross-country ski trip. He told them it wasn't unusual for Steven to take a few days, on these kind of trips because Steven was an adventurer. Once his roommate had heard Steven's skis and backpack were found, but Steven wasn't, he started to become worried. The police asked the roommate if Steven had just left or gone somewhere else or made himself disappear. And the roommate said that Steven would have told him if he had any plans to leave for any extended periods of time. Based off this information, the Michigan State Police started a search and hopefully rescue of Steven. Their biggest concern was that the set of footprints just abruptly stopped a little bit past the shores of Lake Michigan. They feared that Steven fell through the ice, became trapped under the ice, and drowned.
Oof.
They brought in helicopters and snowmobiles, but there was no trace of Steven anywhere. In order to make this a more successful search, investigating officers needed to learn who Steven was. I've only said Steven like 6,000 times.
Oh,
and you haven't
God,
taken
I need a
single
chug.
shot.
I forgot. It's okay. God. I'm drinking bourbon, too. I probably shouldn't have done that.
Yeah, probably not.
Yeah, I'd be dead by the end of the episode.
And here we go. Steven Kubacki was a 23-year-old college student from South Deerfield, Massachusetts. South Deerfield, Massachusetts.
Both M's, I get you.
Yeah. He grew up in a lower middle class home to two parents who worked in factories, but Steven was going to be extraordinary. On a whim, he decided in middle school that he would take the entrance exam to the prestigious Deerfield Academy. Deerfield Academy was a school that you would get into if you had a relative that, went there before you or you came from a wealthy family. This is primarily a boarding school, and they wear uniforms, they live in dorms, they get beef from grass-fed cows. I'm not kidding. I looked up their website. That's what it said. So...
Wait, they get beef from grass-fed cows?
Dead serious. Like, I was like, okay, let me look this Deerfield Academy up.
Is that not what...
When I went to their menu, because they actually had menu on there, it said, we get beef from grass-fed cows. And I was like, what?
Isn't that common?
I thought so too. Well, we live in the Midwest, but I guess not. I'm guessing I'm assuming certain beef farms that do. My husband knows this stuff a little bit way more than I do.
Yeah.
But I'm assuming it's like chickens where they don't treat them right, and they're all stuffed in little tiny pins, and they're just they just dumped food on them.
Sloth.
I'm assuming they must do the same thing with cows. So they're, instead of being just in a little pen, they're probably actually out in the field grazing as opposed to.
in Illinois, that's. I've never seen a farm where they're trapped.
Right, but I don't know where.
But then again, we are in Illinois where
Right.
farming is predominant because we have the best soil.
That's true. I would agree. But
in the United States.
But they do brag about their beef-fed cows. So when Steven was accepted, he was surprised. He was one of their students that would be attending on a scholarship. Steven was considered a day student, meaning that he didn't board overnight. He was a bit of a rebel and would cut class by hiding out in the huge school library.
Oh, you're such a rebel.
You little rebel.
You're in the library reading. You're such a rebel.
He graduated from Deerfield in 1972 and decided to attend Hope College. He was there for 2 years when he was given an opportunity to study abroad in Germany.
I'm taking a drink for that.
He had the opportunity to study abroad in Germany, which he eagerly took. He was comfortable with the language because he had studied it during his time at Deerfield, and he continued to study it at Hope College.
Gotcha.
While in Germany, he started to study psychology. It wasn't like the psychology we offered here in the U.S. They offered something called parapsychology, which is a combination of ESP and psychology.
ESP?
Yes. as in like they liked to. ESP is like extrasensory something. It's basically like studying. I tried to look this up because I didn't quite understand it either. But it's like studying paranormal and psychology at the same time. So it's like our human abilities versus our like psyche or something. I can't remember. But ESP is like knowing something's going to happen before it happens, I think. And then the other stuff. There's like other stuff that goes along with it. I'm guessing like, I don't know, maybe telekinesis is in it. That would be kind of cool because if I had telekinesis.
I can do that.
No, you can't, because then you would be like a Jedi or something.
How do you know I'm not a Jedi?
Because you're Brandon.
Maybe I'm like Jar Jar. Jar Jar Binks, and I play dumb, but in reality, I am a Sith Lord.
I would 100% be Jar Jar Binks, and I feel bad for my husband because I think he spends most of his life running around with like a pillow trying to catch me for all the shit I do because I'm constantly tripping and falling, and he probably wants to bubble wrap me, but I picture I would 100% be him with the Force. Just saying. And I would have to make that noise every time I used it. I would be the Force with like Spider-Man sound effects. Just saying. It would be fun.
Okay.
Steven really enjoyed Germany, and while in Europe, he also learned to love to travel. So when his year was up and he had to return to Hope College, he wasn't ready. He didn't know what he wanted, and he had changed his major several times and didn't know what direction to take his life. He needed a break, so he didn't go back to school. Instead, he went on a year-long adventure. There's not much information about this year of self-discovery for Steven, other than he did go back to Germany for a while. He had a girlfriend there, and he said he was in love, but the relationship didn't last. By 1977, he was back at Hope College to study and hopefully get a degree and graduate. He hung out with a group of about 20 friends that, this is kind of interesting, that most of the college, including the faculty, considered weird and the Dungeons and Dragons types.
Dude.
The faculty, including the dean, said they were all
like,
weird.
Yeah, they're fucking weird. That's awesome.
I'm just saying. Hope College was a religious campus, but Steven wasn't, so he chose to live off campus with one of his close friends, who was the roommate that they had talked to. On February 18th, 1978, Steven started to prepare for this solo cross-country trip. He ran into a friend and he told her how excited he was about the weekend trip. They discussed what they were going to do for the coming week. So when the police interviewed this female, she stated that Steven was in good spirits and that something terrible had to have happened to him.
Mm.
On February 19th, Steven was seen during his cross-country trip by another skier. This man stated that Steven was climbing piles of jagged ice near the shores, and a female with long, dark hair was taking a picture of him.
Really?
Yep.
So this dude went to the post office skiing.
We don't know if he did that.
Went to the mountain to ski.
There's no...
Skied down to the lake. And where was the picture taken?
Just off the shores. So they had...
Where his footprints ended?
I would assume so, yeah.
Did he have his skis and everything with him?
When he was climbing these jagged
because they found
ice
it
piles,
up top.
I would say no.
They found him up top, and they found the...
There's no mountains in this area.
I'm thinking like this gigantic Mount Everest fucking mountain. Okay,
Michigan.
A hill. So they found skis way out where?
Do you know what skiing cross country is? You're just basically like scooting along the ground with your skis and ski poles. You're not like...
I was thinking like skis underneath the armpits, just like...
No. No, not even close. You're just
100
like...
miles an hour.
You're like walking with skis, basically, and you're just chugging along.
What happens when you run out of snow?
Then I don't know. You take your skis off and you...
Go on foot? Then it becomes not a triathlon, but a duathlon.
I don't know. I'm just telling you what it's supposed to be, and you keep going in your head with these imaginary mountains that are in Michigan.
Just go. I'm going to take a drink because I'm pissed. Because it's not actual skiing. It's just
Michigan. There's not like massive...
It's like the people that Like they have the track,
Okay.
And they speed walk.
Yeah, that's basically.
But they can't run. They can't run otherwise they're disqualified.
Right.
It's just speed walking the entire way.
Well, imagine skis and ski poles in a backpack.
Stupid.
Well,
Go ahead.
That's what he's doing.
Yeah. No wonder why he... Never mind.
Why he magically disappears?
No, I was going to say it's something about D&D, but there might be people watching this that actually like D&D, so... And I don't mind it, so... I'll just stop there.
You know Ray Sean plays it? I'm pretty sure he's an elf or something in it.
That doesn't surprise me.
I'm just saying. I think he is. Don't quote me. Police described the woman to Steven's roommate, but he said that they didn't have any friends that fit her description. They asked him if she was a girlfriend, to which he replied, no, all of Steven's girlfriends are overseas. He has 2 in Germany and 1 in France.
Playa!
Yeah. And now he's got this random girl taking pictures of him.
They all met together in one place, and then they kidnapped him.
I mean...
Because they were mad, because there was more than one. Boom. Solved it.
Okay. The police really wanted to find this dark-haired woman. The only lead that they found was a female student who had left campus 2 or 3 weeks after Steven's disappearance. She had become so distraught that she had written her roommate a suicide note, but she was able to get help and move to Grand Rapids, Michigan with a family member. However, that lead just kind of dies. During the first week of March, Steven's mother received a phone call from a family friend. This family friend had stated that they were getting strange calls telling them that they could reach Steven on a certain phone number. When they called that number, the phone had been disconnected. His mother then went through all of her phone bills to see if she was able to find that phone number, and she did find it. Steven had called her from that phone number 6 months prior in September of 1977. She gave all this information to the police, and they were able to track down the owner of that phone number, but once again, this was a dead end. Like, that lead went nowhere. The Kubacki family was getting frustrated from the lack of information, so Steven's brother...
Nope. I'm not drinking again.
I know.
This name came up 20 times in the past minute.
I was wondering what you were doing.
I was taking a drink every time you said Steven. That's the game. But you're trying to kill me and kill everyone watching this. You are trying to murder us so you can do another podcast on our...
On your death, I should.
Yeah, on my death. God.
Okay, well... I don't care. Maybe do Disappearance. Or
every
Missing.
other Steven, okay? Guys,
every other Steven. Yeah, that'll work. The Kubacki family was getting frustrated with the lack of information, so Steven's brother hired a private investigator from Fat Man Detective Service.
I like it.
I do too.
Does it work?
Well, we'll get there. His brother didn't really believe the theory that Steven had fallen through the ice and drowned. He believed that he had taken a flight out of Chicago through Iceland to get back to Germany. The private investigator was able to determine that Steven was not on any of those flights between February 17th and February 21st. I was really confused why they limited it to just those days.
Yeah.
I didn't understand that part.
Yeah, that would make sense.
In May of 1978, Hope College awarded Steven's parents with the bachelor's degree that Steven would have earned. He had just enough credits for a bachelor's degree in German studies. Is that a dinosaur that I saw? That's a beer. Sorry, I'm wondering what Brandon's doing. You're fine. I'm fine. Okay.
Yeah, you're fine.
On December 21st, 1978, John Wayne Gacy was arrested. And for those that do not know who John Wayne Gacy is, I'll give you a very, very, very brief summary. Basically, he was this asshole clown contractor, and that's literally what he was, that would lure in young men to work for his business. And then he would basically rape, murder, kill them, and then bury them in his crawl space.
Yeah.
So he was arrested in Chicago land area. And there was dozens of bodies of young men on his property that needed to be identified. Police were concerned that Steven might be among one of his victims, so they sent his dental records over, but he was not a victim of Gacy. Steven's family truly didn't believe that he was dead. They continued to pay for the private investigator, even though there were no leads. His disappearance had taken a toll on his family. His parents had gotten a divorce, and his mom remarried a year later. On May 5th, 1979, 14 and a half months after Steven's disappearance, his aunt receives the shock of her life. Standing at her door in Great Barrington, Massachusetts, is Steven Kubacki.
What? I just got the chills.
I know.
What?
Steven tells her that he woke up in a grassy field outside of Pittsfield, Massachusetts, which is 700 miles away from where he disappeared. He walked to the closest place to buy a newspaper and was shocked to see the date. He had no memory of the past 14 and a half months. He had found himself wearing clothes he didn't recognize as his own. He had a backpack filled with maps and hitchhiking signs, suggesting he had traveled pretty far. He had gone from Sacramento, San Francisco, Reno, Chicago, Utah.
What? And he doesn't remember this?
Correct. He also had $40 in cash, new glasses, new sneakers, and a t-shirt from a marathon in Wisconsin. During an interview, he told them that he felt like he had done a lot of running. He had his memory up until his disappearance, and the last thing he remembers was feeling cold and scared of being lost in the frozen darkness. He told reporters that he believed that back on the evening of February 19th, 1978, he must have passed out from exhaustion, and exposure to the elements might have caused him to develop amnesia. He promised to see a doctor, but he never promised to actually see a psychiatrist. After these initial interviews, Steven stopped talking to reporters about his experience. He didn't want it to define his life, because eventually he decided to go back to school and get his master's and doctorates in psychology. He would teach college courses in German studies and would go on to have a psychology practice in the Northwest. But his disappearance became a mystery for internet sleuths who wanted to solve it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so strange. It's like the Men in Black just came by and was like, wipe your memory. I hate aliens.
Yeah.
Aliens.
People wanted to know why he never talked about it and what happened to him all those months.
Dude, have you ever got so drunk where you don't remember what you did the previous night the next day?
I wouldn't say I've had that, but I've had it where like it's fragmented and then it starts to come back.
Yeah. Well, I have, and it's actually kind of scary. It's like a buddy's going to be telling me like, hey, you know, this is what you did that night. And I'm like, oh, I don't even remember that. So that in and of itself is scary.
Yeah.
To imagine like how long?
14 and a half months.
14 and a half months you just don't remember. But you all of a sudden you have a backpack full of shit that just dates back.
Yeah.
And you're just like, I had another life. like
for 14
and a half months. I did so much shit. Like, that's crazy. That would be scary. That's probably why he doesn't talk about it.
Yes. I mean, yes. And I'll get to some of this in a little bit. But so Steven disappeared at the southernmost tip of what is called the Lake Michigan Triangle.
Oh, so like the
like the Bermuda Triangle.
Bermuda Triangle, but the Lake.
This is so the Lake Michigan one.
That's actually a thing. I do remember that.
Yep. Yeah. And one of the things that Lake Michigan is known for is boats capsizing for no apparent reason. And
Nessie.
I would love that to be true. I love the Loch Ness Monster. That's like my favorite monster for real. I think it was because I would want to be friends with it and like sit on its back and like ride.
It would probably eat you.
No, because this is my Loch Ness Monster. And
do you realize if it's in the lake, to eat. So it is consistently hungry.
Why would it not have big... Have you seen how big the freaking carp get?
Yeah, but it's Nessie. She's huge.
Yeah, but she's
going to be consistently hungry. So if she sees an opportunity, she's eating you.
She also has a really big neck, so she needs to eat like 4 fish at once, at least. Just so that they can swallow it all the way down. It's like one after each other. Don't give me that look.
Anyways.
In my head, it made sense.
Continue. Let's talk about this disappearance.
Okay. So this area of Lake Michigan is known for capsizing boats for no apparent reason. And the most famous boat capsizing is the Rosabelle. Now, the first time it capsized was in 1875, and it was found floating upside down, and all men aboard perished. They dragged the ship shore. Sorry.
That's a drink.
They dragged it, I think, to Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and basically restored it and sent it right back out to go, do its thing. In October of 1921, the ship's captain, Ed Johnson, refused to board the ship. He said that he had a dream that the ship was doomed and all on board would be lost. Days later, the boat was found capsized again, and everyone on board was considered to have perished.
What?
So the Coast Guard was sent in to investigate, and they found that the stern of the boat was missing. And so they believed that it must have collided with another boat. But
where's that boat?
That's the problem. Every ship was accounted for. And they have no idea what hit it.
Besides the ship that hit that one. Nessie.
I mean, that makes the most sense.
I mean, honestly, if you really want to dial it down, it hit something in open water.
Right. I mean... Lake Michigan's shore is extremely rocky and dangerous, so I imagine they probably more than likely hit something
along rock.
Yeah, not a floating rock, but probably like something along the shoreline. Like, have you been to like northern?
By the shoreline?
It didn't say,
because
but
then why did they all perish? Like, if they capsized by the shoreline,
it flipped upside down. They all drowned.
Well, then jump off.
In fact, one of the things I read that on that 1921 ship, they had an entire baseball team on there that all perished. And this was like an extremely famous baseball team that had really long hair and beards, and they like to do like crazy dances and magic tricks to mess with the other team.
Like the banana.
Yes, like the Savannah Bananas.
Savannah Bananas.
I love those guys.
They're hilarious.
But yeah, they would do that, and they weren't allowed to play in the major leagues because they would literally make the ball disappear and have it reappear in their beard, and then like fuck with it. Yes, fuck. It was great, but unfortunately, that entire team died on this ship.
What the fuck?
I know, it's crazy. So, but yeah, like the entire shoreline of like northern Wisconsin and southern Wisconsin is like all big giant rock. So. I think it just hit a rock, to be honest, but whatever.
Just hit a rock.
Or the Loch Ness Monster. Anyways.
But wouldn't they, when they investigated it, wouldn't they just be like, all right, they hit a rock, but they instead they were like, yeah, they hit a boat.
I mean, I guess
you're right. I feel
right.
like they were deep out there.
Yeah, you're probably right. I mean, it is
them.
a Coast Guard, so they probably have a little bit better understanding of shipwrecks than I do.
Yeah.
Because I've obviously don't study them at all. So
you don't say.
I would say this Coast Guard probably has a general idea. So there have also been reportings of UFO sightings over the lake in the area of the Triangle. In 1994, hundreds of Lake Michigan residents reported seeing 5 or 6 unusual cylinder-shaped objects in the sky. Some of them with red and green lights, and they were described as like fireballs falling from these cylinders. Now, these were seen in an area near Holland, Michigan, which is where the Hope College is located. And actually, when I was reading about this, I think one of the police officers that investigated Steven's disappearance saw these lights.
Really?
Along with, I think it was a weatherman too. So I mean, it wasn't like.
So, do you think they like kidnapped him, probed him, gave him a goodie bag of like, oh, you've been here, done that, been here, done that, wiped his memory,
Gave him a goodie bag. I like
dropped
that.
him off at his aunt's house?
I mean, you
Say,
never know.
Goodbye, Steven. It's a drink, but
You
goodbye.
Are you ready for this part of the story?
Okay, let's
because
get it.
this is where you're
Let's
going to
get it.
have crazy shit go down. So the strangest eyewitness account came from Kathy Dorr, who was part of a competitive sailing team. In the summer of 1978, which was only it was a few months after Kubacki's disappearance, Dorr's team was practicing in the lake alongside two other boats when a thick fog surrounds their boat. She said that the fog was so cold that when she turned around to her teammates, they were no longer next to her, but they were standing on the deck. And they claimed it was much warmer up there. So she joins them on the deck, and all of this happened in like a time period of like a minute. But according to them, it had been 10 minutes. And the captain was up there too. And he was like all giggly and like kind of, from the way she was describing it, acting like she was drunk. And he was saying that, for the last 10 minutes, the ship had been driving itself. And she realized that the ships were starting to like do like these 360 spins, like in a circle, very slowly.
Just doing donuts.
Basically. But what was weird was when she looked over, the other two boats were doing the same thing. And no one was steering these boats.
Like synchronized.
Basically, yeah.
What? Were they opening up a portal?
I don't know. So hang on. We're getting there.
Oh, God.
So when the fog cleared and they were able to... I've skipped one part too. So while they were in the fog, Dora claimed that she had felt the presence of her dead father with her the whole time.
That's...
Yeah.
Okay.
So when the fog lifted, they rowed to shore only to find out that their experience, which they thought was, several minutes, turned out to be hours of missing time.
What?
Yeah. Dora believed that the fog experience would, be talked about by her team, like, because they all experienced this at the same time, but no one talked about it. No one acknowledged it. The only person that would say anything was her.
But my thing is, like, the one thing that separates them from Steven is the fact that he had that goodie bag of, like, T-shirts and, like, shit from Chicago, Wisconsin, whatever.
Right.
He missed some time, 14 and a half months. But he had something that told him where he went. That's what's different from their situation to his, is they just lost time. He lost time, and it gets even weirder.
It does.
So it's like, how did he get all that stuff? That don't make sense.
So, you're not far. Like, internet sleuths have been like looking at all these different stories of the Lake Michigan Triangle and kind of developing theories of what happened to Steven. So one theory is what you said. They believe that he was abducted by aliens and then returned close to his home.
Probed.
Right.
Goodie bag. Home.
Yep. Another theory is that Steven could have slipped into a time portal similar to that fog that later just spit him out. And since he was probably delirious, like kind of like their team, or that Kathy Dorr's like sailing team was, that potentially he didn't realize he had made it back to Michigan and had lost time.
Oh, like maybe he was gone for like, I don't know, 8-9 months, then went out and did his stuff, and then came back and was like, hey, what's up?
I think so, yeah.
And then he was like, oh, I've only been gone for like 3 months, but I did all this stuff. But he doesn't remember all that.
I know. So
or maybe he doesn't talk. Dude, it's weird.
It is weird. So as exciting as all these theories are, I believe that he was a young 20-something-year-old man who wasn't ready to graduate and face the world. And the reason why I believe this was because there was a man named Ron Curtis who on May 5th, 1978, picked up a hitchhiker near Pittsfield, Massachusetts. This hitchhiker told him his name was Nathan and that he had just flown in from San Francisco to Boston. And from Boston, he decided to take a bus to Pittsfield. Nathan told Ron that he had news about a friend that had been missing, and he was meeting up with a mutual friend to let them know the good news. Ron dropped Nathan off at a house in Great Barrington, Massachusetts. Ron would later see a picture of Steven and recognize him as Nathan. The home he dropped the hitchhiker off at was Steven's aunt. Now, Ron's account, of course, makes the theory of amnesia seem not as possible, but Steven may not have wanted, a stranger to know.
Right.
Be the first person to know that he was back before his family. So, there's that argument.
Why did he disappear then? Why
maybe
wouldn't he organize it into a specific timeline?
I don't know.
He's into D&D, and they're into numbers and shit. So it's like, you would think he knew the amount of time he would have to be away to pull it off. But why would he wait 14 and a half months?
I don't know, but the mystery will soon be solved because after decades of silence, Steven is writing a book about his disappearance and how he's slowly regaining his memories of what happened during that time. So
yeah, slowly regaining probably.
So we will finally learn if a time traveling alien kidnapped him or if he had developed amnesia from exposure or if he was just a scared 23-year-old who didn't want to lose adventure and become an adult.
So you're telling me the book's not out yet?
No.
So you're telling me you're leaving me on a cliffhanger?
Basically, yeah.
So what I think is... Thank you for asking, but what I think is...
What do you think?
Obviously aliens. But...
I think...
I just don't know why they picked him.
I don't either. And I actually... You know what I think? I think that...
D&D is the pathway to the aliens.
Right. I think that he had already taken a year break off of school. And I think he wanted to do it again because he didn't want to major in German studies. He just sort of got that as his default bachelor's because he went missing.
Okay.
I think that he wanted to take another year off and he didn't know how to tell anybody. So he faked his disappearance. That's my opinion.
That's not as accurate as the aliens, but I'll take that.
That's just my opinion.
That's your opinion. Yeah. I do think aliens kidnap, probe, goodie bag, doorstep.
That's definitely possible.
In that order.
I'll go with that theory. I like it. But yeah, that's the disappearance of Steven Kubacki.
We need an update.
As soon as
when it comes out, we need an update.
I'll probably read it just because I'm kind of interested to see how accurate people's theories are. But yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, that's crazy.
I think all kinds of stuff could be possible, but I still think he kind of just... But I think the thing that throws me is, and Todd told me this, and I think he's probably right. So since he walked on into the lake, partially into the lake where it's frozen, if he's walking on ice, the footsteps would eventually disappear. So...
Yeah.
Oh, my son keeps calling.
Yeah.
Hello?
That makes sense.
Hi, I'm recording. I sent you a message.
Come on. Is that Jay?
It's Jay. What's up?
What up, Diabeto?
What do you mean?
Oh, God. Yeah. Let us know at home what you guys think the explanation is. I think it's aliens.
All right.
A lot of people
I'll call
probably think it's just him being him. Maybe his early onset of dementia.
Yeah, that's probably what's going on with my stepdad. That's what my son was calling me for, actually.
Dementia?
Yeah, he might, and that's what he was calling me about.
So like chasing him around with a knife or something?
Oh, I don't know, but he sounded out of breath, so it might have been a whole lot of stuff that I'll find out here in a second.
Let's end this episode.
Yeah, when I call him back, I'll find out. But yeah, I'm very curious. So I'll have to give us an update on one of our
we need an update.
Patreon episodes.
We deserve
at
an
some
update.
point.
You can't just leave us hanging like that.
I'm
Why would you do
sorry.
this episode?
Because I know how much you love it.
I hate it. Anyways,
It's great.
if you haven't already, check out our Facebook at A Beer Crime and Tale, where we post newest episodes and updates to come.
And since you're on our Patreon, I'm sure you know where our Instagram is too. So, but if you don't, subscribe to that too.
Yeah.
And thank you so much for listening.
Yeah, we appreciate it, and we'll see you in the next episode.
Okay, bye.
Bye.